Hi, this is Rachel from the Book Mavens. I'm filming by myself today. Amanda had to go out of town and we did not want to delay our Fae May. And so today I will be sharing with you my thoughts about a book series that I read solo. Amanda did not participate in this particular read with me, but since our theme for May is Fae, I thought that I would give you a review of this book series that I finished in April. So it's a bit of an April wrap up as well as an introduction to Fae May. So if you are, of course, familiar with the fantasy genre, we know that Fae are a very popular species, culture, fantastical element that we see in fantasy a lot. And many people have different feelings about Fae. Of course, the Fae that we see in modern fantasy are not Tinkerbell Fae. They're usually, at least in the books that we see with like Sarah J. Maas is a prime example. We see Fae as being kind of uber masculine, very physically attractive, very large warrior-like males that often have very specific character traits like possessiveness and a little bit more animalistic, I would say. And people have a variety of feelings about that. Some words that are used when talking about the Fae are sometimes triggers for people, like the term mate. Matehood is used a lot, typically with Fae stories, this idea that you have a predestined mate out there that you are perfect for and they're perfect for you and it's for life, this bond between the two of you. It really bothers some people. It doesn't bother me. I think that when specifically women read stories like that, I hate to say that makes me sound sexist, but I do think that women in particular, because there's a huge percentage, obviously, that are women who are reading these books. They're being written by women, that it's very attractive to have this idea of this very beautiful man who's not a man, who's a Fae. Let's make sure we separate the two, because Fae aren't human. And I think we always want to give humanistic qualities to Fae, and they just aren't. They're a little bit rougher, like we talked about with like the possessiveness and those animal qualities. But this idea of the matehood, this mating bond, I think is very attractive for women because it's sexy. It's this idea that this man loves you. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter. We don't get so caught up in all of those things. It's just that he thinks that you're perfection. And I think that's pretty hot for a lot of us to read that, especially with the way that a lot of these Fae males are written. And I think a lot of it too, these character traits that they have are very attractive on screen, on the page, but perhaps not so attractive in real life. And I think sometimes we have a hard time balancing the fact that we're reading something in a fantasy genre. It is a fantasy, and I don't think we should take it too seriously. I never take anything Fae related too seriously. And I do think that especially the series that I'm going to be talking about with you today, there is an element of the ridiculousness. And you have to determine if you're a reader that can be along for a ride, because something about it is intriguing, or there's something that keeps you coming back, and the writing isn't always the best. Plot development and pacing can be a little off, but sometimes there's something about it that really draws you in. So the series I wanted to talk to you guys about today is the Zodiac Academy books. Okay. Those aren't our typical books that Amanda and I read, and these are not books I think that Amanda would pick up, but I got sucked into FOMO. FOMO is something that we talked about before on the channel, and it's something that I definitely feel that I'm a victim of often. And you guys heard about my saga with the Plated Prisoner series, and then I missed out because I hadn't read them and I didn't want to invest in these series, and then I read them and I loved them and I felt really bad. So I had gotten hooked on buying the special edition set of the first 4 books of Zodiac Academy and through Bookish Box, and they're beautiful books. Like, they have all the stenciled edges and the covers go together to form a big picture. I mean, they're going to be stunning. They're going to be stunning regardless. And so I decided I was going to go ahead and give them a shot. One of my sisters had read them or had started them, and she's like, well, I think you should give it a shot and see what you see. And would I highly rate the Zodiac Academy books? No. They're written by indie authors, and I think sometimes we always want to give indie authors a shot. Everybody wants to support indie authors, and I think that's a good thing. But when you have indie authors, you don't always get the best editing. So they're not well edited, and they need to be. They need to be edited down. It's classified as a fantasy bully romance. I had never heard of such a thing before I read these books. It was quite an experience. Had I not purchased the 4 books, now of course they're going to release the next set. There are 8 total. The 8th one hasn't released yet. I don't think it releases until December. So I read all 7. Now I have not read the one that's told through the boy's perspective. I have not read the other 2 offshoot series. I have just read the 7 Zodiac Academy books, and I read them in order. There's different theories for how you should read them, whatever. I just read them 1 through 7, kind of back to back to back to back. And I am somebody that once I start a series, oh, I have a visitor. Okay, sorry about our little interruption there. My 2-year-old wanted to see what I was doing in his room. Anyway, so as I was saying about Zodiac, the pacing's not that great. So I read them all 7 together. With series, I tend to like to knock them out. I don't really like to space them out with other things. If I'm in a story, I kind of like to see it through. I probably should have waited. I had read some reviews regarding Zodiac and which book you should stop at before continuing until the 8th and final book comes out in the series. I didn't do that. And if you're familiar with with Star Wars, it has a very Empire Strikes Back kind of ending of the 7th book. Just nothing is good. Nothing is good for anybody that you would root for. And so you're kind of left on this cliffhanger of how are they going to make it out of this plot line that we're in. And I would not say it's emotionally devastating because I really wasn't that attached to the characters of these books, but you know, stick with me. So let me give you the premise of Zodiac Academy. So it is, it's a trope that's been used, this kind of idea of chosen one. So we have the Vega Twins, Darcy and Tori, and they are living in the human world, and they haven't had a very easy life. They've bounced from foster home to foster home. Tori boosts motorcycles to help make ends meet. They finally have gotten out of their last foster home and have tried to set up an apartment together when a mysterious stranger shows up and reveals that they are the lost twins of this king and queen in this other land, and that he has come to take them to Zodiac Academy to be trained in magic, that they are really Fae. And so this fellow they travel by Stardust, which is kind of fun. You just throw Stardust in the air and off you go. And so they land at Zodiac Academy, and they have to go through this kind of awakening ceremony to figure out which elements they have. Now, of course, because they are, we talked about this chosen one trope, they end up being, of course, uber powerful because, of course. But meanwhile, the entire time that these twins have been kind of MIA, there were the celestial heirs, and they were like the council to the king and queen of Solaria. That's the land that we're in. And so their children, these sons, are the celestial heirs, and they are kind of being groomed to rule together in Solaria. So of course, when the Vega Twins show up, they're identical, by the way, but Darcy has blue in her hair and Tori doesn't. It was actually very difficult for me to tell the twins apart through I think pretty much all of the first book and halfway into the second. And then they finally got enough character differentiation and what they were doing for me to, okay, so I know who I'm with, because the chapters bounce between the twins, especially in the first book. And then of course, as you move forward through the series, that you get different chapters with different perspectives, and it's all fine. But yeah, initially it was a little difficult. And so these boys anyway at the school are just not fans of these girls coming in, that they have a claim on this throne, that they've been kind of, like I said, groomed their whole life to take over. There's different houses that are elemental houses, but then you also have where you're like, have like a creature half. They're all Fae, but there's different like classifications. So you have vampire Fae that feed off power through your blood, and we'll talk about that in a minute with Lance Orion, the mysterious guy who shows up. Turns out he's a teacher, but there's a lot of kind of creepy. It's creepy for me because I'm a teacher and he's a professor at the school. Now, to be fair, they all are 18 plus. So I think for our sensibilities, it seems like it's okay. It seems like it's more of a college, but it also sounds like a private high school. It's super weird. And anyway, so we have vampires. He's a vampire Fae. That's why I mention it. But you also have like werewolves and total shifters. There's a Cerberus. There are Pegasus, which in the later books, this whole culture behind the Pegasus thing is super weird. But anyway, and then we have dragons, and one of our main celestial heirs, Darius, who is kind of the leader of the pack of these boys, is a dragon shifter, and apparently they're very rare. Anyway, so we don't find out anything about the girls until later books in terms of what they turn into. So we don't know that. We just know that they have control over all of the elements. So basically you have a school set up where they're horribly bullied by these boys, but I would not have continued past the first book had I not purchased those special editions. And I'm glad that I gave it another shot, because like, you hate these boys. I still do. I really don't. There's not a lot of believability for me regarding the romantic relationships that develop. I think what those boys did was unforgivable, and I would never give them the time of day. But there is a particular character in the books that I live for. She is the only reason I have continued with the books, and she does not get enough page time in the first book at all, and that is Geraldine Groose. She speaks in alliteration all the time. She's a royalist, so she supports the twins to rule, and she is hands down the best character of the series. Any scene with her is worth reading, and I know there's a novella where she's heavily featured, but she and one of the celestial heirs develop this relationship, and he just worships the ground she walks on after a while, but can't like figure out why. He doesn't understand anything she says. It's just, I'm not explaining it very well, but it is really funny. And anything with Geraldine Groose, when she's on the page, I am laughing out loud. So she, to me, is the best written character of the whole thing. The later books get quite large. They're quite chunky. Now, I read them digitally because I didn't want to purchase them printed, since I'm getting the special editions. So I don't have them to show you, but they do get progressively larger, and they definitely need to be edited. Most of them could probably be cut in half. There's a lot of repetition. There's a lot of ridiculous language that's used. I don't mean like cussing. I mean like just these big declarations of feelings that are just repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated. It's a little ridiculous, and they're very predictable. But Geraldine Groose, I live for her. She's worth it. Now, when you move further in the books, the girls do take revenge on the boys. And that book, I think that was like the second and third books. Those were very entertaining. Now, as of course, you see these romantic relationships develop, and everything kind of shifts because there are things that they have to kind of come together on because there are bigger threats than their kind of fight for power. And it's definitely interesting. Like I said, not the best written series of books, but they are fun. So if you're somebody who can engage in some ridiculousness, I hesitate to say that I recommend them. But they're fun. They're fun. Like I said, I've stuck it out. I'm definitely going to read the 8th one. You don't go 7 books in and then quit on the last one. I'm no quitter. So I will definitely be picking up the 8th one. I will display them. I'm not going to treat them like shame books, but they are, they're not what I would consider quality literature. So if you're somebody who hangs the moon on Robin Hobb, these are not the books for you. But they're very ridiculous. They're definitely adult. These are not YA books. They're very sexually explicit. Yeah. Trying to think of what else I can say about these books. They do need an editor. I know that there's 2 women writers that write it together, which I think is cute. And I'm interested to see what they do moving forward. The books do get progressively better on some things, but it's also the length. The length they just get really long, and they do need an editor. There's a lot of typos. There's a lot of like simple editing mistakes as well, but they definitely could be cut down quite a bit. But they do engage in those traditional kind of Fae tropes, this idea of having a fated mate. They called them, what's the word that they have? I think they call them fated mates. And then there's also this idea that if you reject the bond, then you become star-crossed, very Romeo and Juliet, and where the elements are trying to keep you apart. The stars literally are like sentient beings kind of deal, but you never really see them. They're making all of these decisions. Like all of these Fae are just pieces on a chessboard, I guess. It's an interesting concept. I wouldn't say that it's particularly original. You can definitely see where they pulled from a variety of places, but that's fine as long as it's written well, which this isn't, but it has some highlights. So if you're looking for something, and I mean just something that, to me, I did not find it emotionally devastating. Some people did. Zodiac Academy is very popular right now on Book Talk. Like I said, I'm not that attached to these characters. I just wanted to give you guys an honest review. Did I have fun? Did I laugh out loud at many parts in these books? Yes. Did I find it poorly written? Yes. Did I find some of it ridiculous? Yes. Quite a bit of it ridiculous and redundant. But like I said, if you're just looking for kind of a beach read, maybe once you get past that first book. The first book is the roughest, I think, but it is also the shortest. So there you go. You might want to give it a shot. So that's it for my review of Zodiac Academy. I wanted to give you guys a really honest take on it and let you make up your own minds. Just be wary of Book Talk. They tend to recommend a lot of things. Like I said, to support indie authors is great, but you also want quality literature, and sometimes I think Book Talk misses the mark on that. So read, don't read, totally up to you. I wouldn't sign my life away for these books, that's for sure. But they definitely made me giggle. And the Pegasus stuff. Oh God, the Pegasus stuff. That was original. All the Pegasus stuff, never seen that before. I don't know if I ever needed to see it, but yeah. Anyway, so things to look forward to for May. Of course, we're going to stick with our Fae May, and we will be discussing at length Sarah J. Maas's works. We're going to be talking about all 3 series of books. Her Throne of Glass series, Crescent City, and of course, A Court of Thorns and Roses. ACOTAR, as it's called, has gotten a lot of attention. It's very, very popular on Book Talk. The books have been around for a while. They've been around certainly before Book Talk, and they are being optioned for a show on Hulu. I think they're casting it right now. And so, of course, there's all kinds of fantasy casting lists for all of that. But Sarah J. Maas is a very hot author right now, and she's certainly, I would think, queen of the Fae fantasy group, I don't know, subgenre of writers. So we definitely want to take a look at her and talk about, you know, some good things about her writing, some bad things about her writing, and what we think of her series overall, which one, how we're going to rank them. So which ones are the best, or which one, there's only 3 sets. I'm definitely getting into a hole. This will not be an edited video, by the way. I just kind of throw it up there when I shoot them at home. So yay for you. You get to watch me spiral. But yeah, so we're going to go into some detail about Sarah J. Maas. And we look forward to seeing you in our next video. Have a nice night.